when Bishop Jakes first got to Dallas, and he was teaching oneness doctrine, like blatantly.
Would you say the doctrine of the Trinity is an essential doctrine for like Orthodox Christianity, or would you say?
Ruslan.
97, I moved to Texas.
Okay.
And that was June of 97. I moved to Texas. I joined the Potter's House July of 97. I meet Juliet in 98. We get married in 99.
What brought you to Texas?
A word from God.
God just told you to go to Texas.
Yeah, so I was already on my way. So Bishop Jakes early on when he had all of his get ready stuff.
Is it the same time as like Woman Thou Art Loosed in that whole era?
Yeah, this is very early on. Like I think he had maybe done 2 conferences at the time. But I do remember Woman Thou Loosed was out because let me tell you how churchy I was back then. I literally had a Walkman and I had the Woman Thou Art Loose cassette, the music from the conference. And that's what I was playing on the bus ride from Cali to Texas because my parents didn't put me on a plane. They put me on a Greyhound bus. I spent 2.5 days getting there, right? So, but I was already supposed to go because the Ross family actually emanates from East Texas. And so I had never been to Texas. I wanted to see those Rosses from Texas. And then Bishop Jakes was having a Woman Thou Art Loose conference. This was the conference where Juanita Bynum preached No More Sheets. I was in the room when she preached that message, right? One of the most vulnerable, transparent messages that I think anybody had heard at the time for a conference speaker to actually speak like that. So 2 days before I left, I felt like the Holy Spirit said, buy a one-way ticket to Dallas. And I was like, because I'm West Coast for life. Like I'm sea walking up in this camp, right? You know what I mean? I'm flashing gang signs of a gang I was only in for 7 days because my brother walked me in and walked me right back off, right? So Juliet and I met at Potter's House in the youth ministry. We were there for 13 and a half years. I learned a lot, grew a lot over that time. Like I would not be me if it wasn't for those 13 years there. I served the last 4 years as a young adult pastor. After being like a youth evangelist would probably be the best term for it for about 3 years.
Was that your first role, like informal ministry, was at the Potter's House?
The first pastoral role that I ever had was at Potter's House. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, after being a youth evangelist for 3 years, I was deathly afraid I was going to run out of stuff to say as a pastor. I'm like, I'm not just like speaking here and then moving on. I got to sit here and build.
Yeah.
And so that's when I understood like, oh, you can do a sermon series and your conversation doesn't actually have to be done. And you can walk through an entire book if you want to. Let's walk through Galatians, let's walk through Ephesians, And so after 4 years at PH, I transitioned to go back on the road as a itinerant speaker. And during that same time, so this is 2011 now. So I was a young adult pastor from 06 to 10, and then went back on the road January 1st of 11, started attending Gateway in May of 11, and then they brought me on staff July of 12.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Yeah.
Was there a huge contrast between young adults pastor at Potter's House to itinerant speaker, you're traveling around, to now you're on staff at Gateway?
Yeah, no, there was not really the contrast that most people would think.
Okay.
Like most people think, oh man, you had to have culture shock going from Potter's House to Gateway.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, no, not really, because 70% of the churches I preached at were predominantly white, even while I was at Potter's House.
Potter's House, okay.
So I was really never really like I didn't really fit the mold of like the quintessential black Pentecostal young preacher that would have been doing like the black church circuit.
Got it.
Like I was like,
why do you think that is?
Because I needed you to know what I was talking about. like
I don't know
wasn't
if I'm allowed to laugh at that, Tim.
Dude, there's no cap. Like I wasn't about to give you like you know, a basic little tidbit point and then start hooping. And God came down and said, I was taught to do that.
Yeah.
It didn't fit.
Yeah, it didn't fit.
I'm like, nah, fam. If I'm a hoop, it's going to be informed. Like, if we're going to have a praise break, you're going to know why.
Yep.
But what you're not about to do is praise break for 30 minutes and walk out and be like, I don't know what he said, but it was good.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to be that dude.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wound up more at white churches. So when I got to Gateway, it wasn't that much of a culture shock. I actually felt like when I got to Gateway, I was switched at birth.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
interesting.
I think I'm finishing y'all sentences.
Hey, you want to see something crazy? 67% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. Do me a quick favor, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date on all the videos here on the Blessed God Studios channel.
Yeah.
So,
I remember watching, you ever watched The Elephant Room?
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was either Jake's or another gentleman they had on that said this really interesting point. And he said, the biggest difference between the black church and the white church is that the black church doesn't have the luxury to argue and fight over theology in all the particulars about the areas we disagree in, because there was a season where the black church just needed to survive.
Oh, for sure.
Why do you think that fellowship is easier? And you hit this over dinner, and it was insightful.
Well. First of all, as a minority, and the world with which I have influence is not only African Americans; it exceeds far beyond African Americans. But in regimes outside of your own, but particularly with African Americans, minorities don't have the luxury of bickering about everything like that. We couldn't afford to do that. It was not unusual for Trinitarians and Apostolics and pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, no-trib to come together and work together, or we wouldn't survive. It's not that we don't have an opinion. It's not that we're not intellectual enough to have the debate. Our survival instincts necessitated that we come together, or we would be totally destroyed. And so if we were going to get anything accomplished in the earth, we have to have some camaraderie that crosses over barriers where you seemingly are trained to esteem your principles above people. We tend to be trained that reflecting Jesus' love is loving what Jesus loved, which is people, irrespective of their principles. We can work on the principles as we go, but he died for the people. He had the law. He died for the people. And if we get that backwards and we lift the laws higher than the people, I don't think we really reflect the heart of God.
When you look at Jake's, and even the reason why they had him on there, on that Elephant Room, was like, hey, like, where
wasn't that because he was oneness?
It was, well, that was kind of the thing. And he went on and he affirmed that he was Trinitarian. Yeah. But even in the replay of that, and I went back and looked at it, it was like, is he using coded language to still say he's oneness, but he's not really Trinitarian? And that caused a big kerfuffle. And in hindsight, it's like, well, what is he? Is he oneness? Is he Trinitarian? And he will tell you that he's Trinitarian. I think, what is it? He's like, he doesn't like the phrase, there's like some particular word. He's like the word persons or something like that. Right. But then when he sat there with Mark Driscoll, he affirmed what seemed to be Trinitarian Orthodox doctrine. And so do you think some of that is like, man, we just had to survive?
Yeah, bro.
We're not saying orthodoxy is not important.
Correct.
We're just saying through this cultural lens, and we weren't really invited to a lot of these other institutions.
Correct.
You know, where I believe it was Martin Luther King Jr. wanted to go to like a conservative seminary and wasn't allowed to, and then ended up going.
Can you imagine? That his mind wasn't let into that type of institution,
and he ended up going to a more liberal, progressive seminary, which seemingly formed some of his theology.
So that is historically accurate. I think the African American church historically was a community born out of necessity. Right? It wasn't optional. It's like, if we don't have faith, we're dead. We're going to die. We're going to break down mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, maritally. You name the Lee, bro. We were in that. So I think that's very accurate. And even as it has progressed today, it's like, like the whole time, like when Bishop Jakes first got to Dallas, his Wednesday night Bible studies had 5,000 people. And he was teaching oneness doctrine, like blatantly. Like, it was like, if ice is frozen, it's water. If it's steam, it's water.
Yeah.
If it's water.
Which is kind of like a modalist illustration.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting in the back going, you right on that. I don't agree. I've always been Trinitarian, right? So, but it wasn't like, I have to leave this church.
Right.
This dude's a heretic.
Yeah.
It was like, no, this community was popping.
Yeah.
Like I was learning, I was growing. And there was some stuff even in my 20-year-old mind.
Yeah.
I wasn't 20 years old, but in my 20s that I was like, no, I'm not amen in that, but I still rock with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People be leaving over
Do you think
crazy stuff right now.
Do you think that is an essential when we talk about, unity and the essentials? Is it unity and essentials, charity and all things? I'm totally butchering that quote. Charity in all things, anyway, it's credited to Augustine, but it's not an Augustine quote. But would you say the doctrine of the Trinity is an essential doctrine for like Orthodox Christianity, or would you say
I would say I feel better with the Trinitarian perspective and doctrine.
Yeah.
And I'll also say I can hold the tension of somebody that doesn't hold that doctrine and still be able to appreciate their fidelity to Jesus Christ. Now, what I will say, this is my observation, and if this is slanderous to some people that hold a modalist view, maybe I haven't met you in particular. But one of the things that I kind of, in a generic sense, walked away with from people that had like a oneness doctrine, they seem meaner. and I think they were mean because they don't have a daddy.
Oh, ouch. Okay.
Like if it's Jesus only, then who's your dad?
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
you know what I mean? And
It's interesting how you took that theological concept and made it kind of practical and demeanor,
Well, I did stand up for 2 years, and I had humor before I had Jesus.
Yeah.
And humor has always been, humor was the first thing that gave me levity to deal with my trauma.
Yes.
So before I had Christ and freedom and deliverance and therapy and you know what I mean? EMDR, if you don't laugh at this, we're gonna stab people in the chest, right? So, but yeah, I just feel like my history of people that have that view, they seem to be on edge a lot, and I think it's because they don't have a dad.
Man, that's heavy.
And without a daddy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. When you were there at Potter's House, did it seem like he shifted on that? Because that's how it felt on the Elephant Room, watching that back. And I watched it back like within the last year. Do you think he shifted on that and kind of became more Trinitarian, even though Trinitarians don't always embrace him and still call him a heretic?
Yeah, for sure. I think he did. I think Thomas Dexter Jakes Sr., if I may officially call him by his full name, Bishop Thomas Dexter Jakes Sr. is a brilliant mind. I think the Elephant Room was really good for him because his mind needed to be with other people who had that kind of intellectual acuity to stretch and to poke and prod. And you don't get that within your own denomination. You don't get that within people that, oh, amen, brother. You know, they're co-signing on everything you say. So I thought it was really good for him. And what I saw over the years is that he just didn't talk about it as much. So it wasn't like a point that he came back and got louder on one way or another. It was like it stretched him, and then that ceased to be something that we heard as much as when he came.
The oneness teaching got turned down.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the full extended version of this podcast, be sure to sign up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month. It'll really help us continue contextualizing the gospel using YouTube, media, and podcasting. And in exchange, you will get full unedited versions of the podcast, of our daily after party streams, a discount for our merch store, and exclusive access to our private Discord server. It's only $5 a month. The link for Patreon is in the description of this video, as well as the pinned comment below. Again, hit the link in the description, sign up now, and I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.